Now, I think we'll remain seated as we sing some of these hymns that had been recommended. We're going to start with number 400 and, no, we just did it, 230, thank you. Yes, I will get confused more than once, but you're used to that by now.
Well, they both start with sweet, so
That's it, thank you. I'm grateful that Siri covers for me. And Siri may need to help us on this one because it's a little hard to read how to sing it. Because you'll see, you see. Well, yeah, we go, the first verse, it goes through it twice, and then we sing the refrain. You see how it goes, Siri? It goes one, and then it goes, you go again, and then two is the. Yeah, that's right. So we'll do 1 and 2, and then the refrain. But let me tell you a little bit about the author. Doris Akers, a wonderful, wonderful hymn writer. Doris Akers was one of 10 children. She taught herself to sight read the piano at age 6. She wrote her first song at age 10. She wrote over 500 hymns. And this one, which is a favorite for many of us, and of course I remember because, among others, Janice Napper absolutely loved this hymn. And the story is, Doris had a choir that often went and sang at other churches. And they had been invited to church, and they rehearsed beforehand at the church, and then they would have a time of prayer. And it was time for the service, and she was still with the group in prayer. And someone from the pastor sent someone and said, "Could you please come out? We need to get the service started." And she said, "Yes, but there's such a sweet, sweet spirit in this place," that she didn't want to leave that time of prayer. And she knew that oftentimes she'd get an idea for a hymn, but if she couldn't write it down, the next day she wouldn't remember what it was. Some of us know what that's like. But the next day she remembered there's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place. And we have sung that in this church, and we know about a sweet spirit. And so we often, when we sing it here, we often do it when we're using recorded music, and we use it, the choir from the Keavalai Church on Maui recorded this, and we often sing with them, but we can do it without the assistance of their choir. And so, Siri, what do we need to do, and how do we do it? Just follow you? Yes, excellent. Absolutely.
And for these blessings, we lift our hearts in praise. Without a doubt, we'll know that we have been revived when we shall leave this place.
Oh, Doris, thank you for that. What a wonderful. No, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful hymn, and we feel it in this church. There's a power in the blood, which is number 327. This is a hymn that highlights that we are redeemed by the blood of Christ. It is a tribute to the sacrifice made by Jesus, giving his life to redeem our souls. That's what the message of our gospel is. It is number 327. And a favorite of many. What are we doing on time? Let's do the first 3 verses. Okay, if you would. Now, abide with me, which is number 467 in our hymnal. Let me say a little bit about this. Henry Light was a pastor of a little fishing community on the coast of England. He served for 23 years, served well, but his health was compromised by the cold, wet winters, and he developed tuberculosis. And he decided to go to Italy to get a warm place and see about a recovery. And before he went, he entered the pulpit and preached what was to be his last sermon. He planned a therapeutic holiday, and he said this before he left. He said, "I must put everything in order before I leave, because I have no idea how long I will be away." After that service, he walked along the beach for an hour, went to his study, and then came out with the words to a hymn that he had written. He left that with his wife, and then he left for the trip, and he went through France, and he was staying in Nice at a hotel where he was taken ill, and there was another pastor who was at that same hotel who stayed with him in his last hours. He attended to him, and he said that Henry's last words were peace, joy. His last words. When the news of his passing reached his faith community, they asked for a memorial service. And his son-in-law, who was also a pastor, said yes. They sang for the very first time his hymn, "Abide with Me," which has served the church for all these years after his passing. And the very first time it was ever sung was at his own memorial service. Abide with me. Let's do all 5 verses. We can do it. Now, because he lives. Bill and Gloria Gaither, many of us enjoy their music over many years. Bill and Gloria Gaither weren't ready to have another child. And the times were not easy. This was during the civil rights conflicts. This was during the Vietnam War. It was a tough, tough time. And Bill Gaither came down with mononucleosis, was very fatigued and very depressed. And yet, they realized that with God, they could face whatever was coming. We know that these are difficult days again. And it's not easy to be a new parent in difficult days. I think of Josh and Ashley and little Hudson. I mean, we worry about our little ones. And they did too. But they sat down and wrote this song, "Because He Lives." And it was for them, but it became for all of us. And if you would look at our hymnal, one of the things that I do, Carol and I do, is we keep track of when we sing which hymns. And this one, it has just about as many sings as any. And it speaks to us, and I hope it speaks to you. Because He lives, meaning Jesus, I can face tomorrow. May we do the 3 verses, please? I think it's 3 verses. Yes, thank you. Because He lives, 204. Number 434, Precious Lord, Take My Hand. Written by Tom Dorsey. For many years, I thought that was the band leader, Tommy Dorsey, of Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey. But it's not. Same name, but a different person. This was His father was a black revivalist preacher. At age 11, he went to work playing piano in a vaudeville theater. He was saved and converted in 1921 and worked on writing music and was having not much success. Well, he in 1932, while he was leading music in St. Louis, he was handed a telegram bearing these words, "Your wife just died." He rushed to a phone to call home, but all he could hear over the line was, "Nettie is dead. Nettie is dead." A friend drove him through the night, and he arrived home to learn that his baby boy had also died. He thought he was through writing gospel music. He thought he was going to turn away from the faith, not to write anymore. But the following week, while alone in a friend's music room, he said he had a strange feeling, a sudden calm and a quiet stillness. And he said, as my fingers began to manipulate over the keys, words began to fall in place on the melody like drops of water falling from a crevice of a rock. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. So, he is remembered today as the father of gospel music, author of hundreds of gospel songs, including his equally famous Peace in the Valley. Precious Lord, take my hand. May we sing the 3 verses, please. Thank you, Siri. We close our service with a great old hymn by Fanny Crosby, that wonderful blind author of so many great hymns. Wonderful story told about Fanny Crosby. D.L. Moody and Ira Sankey were doing a revival in New York City, and she went to the revival, and the church was so full that she couldn't find a place to sit. And she always tried to come to a revival inobtrusively. She didn't want attention on her. Well, D.L. Moody's son, Will, saw her and he said, I'll find you a place. And he found her a place on the platform right next to the pulpit. And D.L. Moody looked over and saw her, and they were singing Blessed Assurance, and he asked them to stop so that he could introduce the author of that hymn. And he did to such applause, and people wanted to thank her for the gift that she was to them. And so she sat in great humility but accepted their accolades, and that song still touches our lives. Blessed Assurance, Jesus is mine, number 359. Please.